remote sensing instrument underneath the wing. And so no data that I've seen yet to say that it's gotten stronger yet, but they're not done investigating this. And the Air Force is about to come in from the southwest, so they haven't measured the winds inside the core yet, but they will soon. And within the next half hour, the Hurricane Center will evaluate all of these data and issue the intermediate public advisory by 8 p.m. Eastern Time. We're not going to get an updated cone and intensity forecast. That'll happen at 11, but because of the weak wind shear that is likely to be the case, its whole trek across the western Atlantic and those really warm waters, Hurricane Center forecasting a major hurricane. There'll be a lot of ups and downs probably along the way that you can't capture in a 4- and 5-day forecast, but be preparing for a major hurricane coming to Florida and be ready by Sunday morning when the most likely time for the tropical storm force winds to arrive is. And it could be a little sooner than that. We'll update you as it gets closer. So that means Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. You got some days to prepare ahead of time here. The chances of tropical storm force winds greater than 50-50 for most of you on the Florida Peninsula. But hurricane force winds, nobody's above about a 1 in 3 shot. That's just because we don't know who's going to get it. Mike and Alex, somebody's probably going to get hurricane conditions in Florida.
Absolutely. Dr. Knapp, thank you.
All right, well, the outer edges of Dorian moving away from Puerto Rico. Paul Goodloe has been on the island monitoring the lead up to the storm and then, of course, the storm itself. Obviously, the worst of it did not move through Puerto Rico, which was great news. These people were rightfully super nervous after a very rough 2017.
Right, and also you got to remember the forecast for Dorian has been the entire length of this island. A couple of days ago, it was forecasted to be on the western tip, just west of the tip, maybe going through the Mona Passage between Puerto Rico and the DR, the western tip of Puerto Rico. This island is 110 miles wide. Yesterday, we came on air with you guys at 5 o'clock, and the 5 o'clock advisory shifted the track of Dorian right through Ponce, where we were yesterday evening and even this morning. And then we moved here because the track overnight now pushed it on this eastern tip. And then the afternoon update pushed it a little farther on towards the east over the Virgin Islands, where it hit St. Croix this morning as a tropical storm, and then St. Thomas becoming a hurricane here. And now it's north of the island, and we're seeing maybe a little bit of light rain from time to time. We have definitely dodged a big one here. As you mentioned, Alex, it's about being shell-shocked. 23 months ago, we had a Hurricane Maria just cut right across this island here. It's about 35 miles wide here as a Category 4. But if you could really categorize this, it's more like a Category 4.9. It was very close to a Category 5 hurricane and just devastated this island from end to end here. And that's after being glanced in kind of a glancing blow from Hurricane Irma, which, by the way, devastated the U.S. Virgin Islands. So they were also hit a couple of years ago directly with Irma, a glancing blow from Maria. Here, glanced by Irma, directly hit by Maria. So everybody here from the USVI here to Puerto Rico on edge with Dorian. The good news is it's strengthening as it pulls away. We did have some impacts here. In fact, a man trying to clean out his gutters in the San Juan area in Bayamon, he actually fell off his roof and died. So he's now classified as the first victim here from now Hurricane Dorian. And we'll cross our fingers as it moves on towards the U.S. and the Bahamas, and hopefully we won't have any more loss of life.
Absolutely.
Mike, Alex?
Paul, thank you so much. We're going to be checking back in with Paul, but obviously, really best case scenario for a lot of Puerto Rico.
Could have been much worse, and we really dodged a bullet there for sure. Coming up here on Weather Underground tonight, we've been talking all week about the best places and ways to protect your home from hurricane damage. Tonight, focusing on your roof and the steps you can take to keep the water out.
You can always count on the champagne of beers for the perfect balance of flavor and refreshment. It's always just right. Welcome to the High Life.
Oh, great presentation, Tim. Could you email me the part about Geico, making it easy to switch and save hundreds?
Oh, yeah, sure.
You don't know my name, do you?
Of course I know your name. I just get you mixed up with the other guy. What's his name? What's your name?
Switch to Geico. You could save 15% or more on car insurance.
Could you just tell me? I want this to be over.
This Labor Day, save up to 50% on over 300 floors at Lumber Liquidators Labor Day flooring sale. Get waterproof flooring up to 50% off or exclusive Bellawood hardwood up to 40% off. Plus special financing. The Labor Day sale is going on now at Lumber Liquidators Flooring Company.
You're a big deal to us, so we've got big deals for you. Build up your fall wardrobe during the big deal event at Men's Warehouse this Labor Day. Suits start at $179.99. Dress and woven shirts are 3 for $99.99. Plus take an extra 40% off select clearance items. Only at Men's Warehouse.
I know people love the dish remote. It's great. So why build in the Google Assistant? I mean, who really needs a TV remote that can turn the thermostat up,
Change temperature to 72.
the lights down,
Dim the lights.
and still access their DVR?
Play the
Actually, some people could absolutely use a remote like that. The new Dish Voice Remote. Dish, tuned in to you.
With over 100 ways to enjoy lunch at Olive Garden, starting at $7.99, the best lunch option is more options. Only at Olive Garden.
Hey, no, I'm driving Dad to the hospital. He was just playing with Emma and he hit his head, but then he wouldn't stop bleeding and he got dizzy. Right, the blood thinner for AFib. How you doing, Dad?
I'll be okay.
Listen, we're pulling in. I'm gonna call you back. This is the third time he's been admitted with a serious bleed. Is this blood thinner really helping him?
I understand your concern. Your father's atrial fibrillation increases his risk for stroke. This is why you're on warfarin. But there is an alternative.
Another pill?
No, it's called Watchman. Watchman is a permanent implant that reduces the risk of stroke.
In a clinical trial, 9 out of 10 people who received Watchman stopped taking warfarin in 45 days. There are risks associated with the Watchman implant, including internal bleeding, stroke, and in rare cases, it can be fatal. Talk to your cardiologist so that you thoroughly understand all the benefits and risks to see if Watchman is right for you.
Learn more at Watchman.com.
Welcome back into Weather Underground. We are watching the very latest with Hurricane Dorian today, becoming a Category 1 hurricane. You look at the movement over the past few hours over the U.S. Virgin Islands. Puerto Rico spared some of the worst of this storm, so obviously great news for that island, but over 90-mile-an-hour gusts reported on portions of the U.S. Virgin Islands. Now we watch this thing move north of the islands, and the expectation is that this will strengthen and eventually make its way closer to the U.S. southeast coast.
By the way, expecting a new advisory from the Hurricane Center in roughly 20 minutes or so, and we'll bring that to you as soon as we get it. But when it comes to reducing hurricane damage, especially from wind and rain, protecting your home, definitely key.
Yeah, and guys, I went to the Insurance Institute for Business and Home Safety to help us learn how to protect one of the most vulnerable parts of our home. And today we're focusing on the roof. And guys, right here, what I have is a roof mock-up. Remember how we talked last hour about how you can tape these seams between the plywood to protect the water from getting in from the outside? There's also a way that you could protect it from the inside by spraying this foam up into the attic. So that's one of the things we're going to talk to the folks from Flash and IBHS about tonight. And I talked about this and other ways to protect your roof with Ann Cope, the chief engineer at the IBHS. So Ann, we've talked about the importance of the roof keeping the water out, and there are different options of what you do, whether you're re-roofing or not, and even the kinds of materials you use when you're re-roofing.
Absolutely. So we showed the stronger felt, the 30-pound felt. This is another material. It's synthetic, and you can see it kind of has a reinforcement in it attached with the button cap. And we've still got the taped seams. So this is another method that you can use when you're re-roofing.
So it can be thinner if it is a stronger, more reinforced material.
Absolutely.
Now, if you're not re-roofing, what can you do from the underside to increase the chances that water doesn't get into your home?
Right. Let's say you just got a new roof and you're watching this show, you're like, I just got a new roof. You can still come in from underneath and do a closed cell foam. And it looks like this right here.
So how would this be installed?
So this is going to be installed from inside the attic. Instead of the plywood, we've used plexiglass so you can see through it. But somebody would come into the attic and spray this up against the rafters or trusses in this pattern. This seals from below, so the water can't get all the way through to your attic. So this
is on the underside of the seam where the tape might be?
Right. It's just coming in from the underside and doing the tape on the bottom. So it has to be closed cell foam so that it doesn't allow water to go through it. But you can do this from the underside.
Any pros and cons you want to highlight between the two in terms of their reliability, costs, and so forth?
We've tested both of these in our lab and found them to be effective. What we have also found is sometimes it's harder to get every single nook and cranny with the spray foam. And the spray foam is going to be a little bit more expensive because you have to come in from underneath, and most of the time you're going to have to hire a professional. So it might be more expensive, but it's the one option that you can do if you're not installing a new roof.
Well, Mike Grimaldi joins us now. He's the Senior VP of Education and Technical Programs for the Federal Alliance for Safe Homes, otherwise known as FLASH. Thanks so much for joining us. You know, we talk about the roof being such a critical part of your home, and so protecting it and using all of these tips and tricks that Dr. Knabb talked about, so vital.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. You know, the idea is a strong roof and strong walls. You know, the goal is to keep the roof on and keep the water out. And, you know, we achieve that through strong building codes. You know, like we see here with the possibility of using spray foam, it's a great alternative. It's a great supplement, you know, to using our enhanced connections for nailing, things like that. And obviously keeping the water out through using, you know, a seam tape like we saw, or the spray foam adhesive, because that can do both as well.
Okay, Mike, I've got this portion of a home that you sent me, right? Okay, so we've got three representations of connecting the roof to a wall, okay? Now this middle one has this brace here that's got this interesting angle. Is this the best option as compared to the other two options where you've got nails in various places?
Yeah, that's your standard metal connector, Dr. Knabb. That's a great option. The one on the left side of that where you'll see two nails, which are called toenails, that's typically how homes have been put together for the longest time. And it holds the truss in place except when there's a wind load event or an uplift event and the nails pull right out. Right. And then the opposite side of that, you'll see that orange head little screw. That's the latest technology from our friends at Simpson that made the mock-up for us. And that actually replaces the metal connector, and it has the same uplift resistance.
There's always some cool new technology. And the thing about it is, Mike, this isn't necessarily exclusive to people that live in hurricane-prone areas. If you live in a thunderstorm area, if you live in an area that tends to get high winds, this is a great thing for you to have.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, the best part about that is all of these little things can account for maybe 2% more in your whole home. So if you do the math, that's like $1 a day for the lifetime of your mortgage. And we like to say 2% more, but 100% better.
Now, Mike, what can people do? Can they go up into their attic and go see if they have these kinds of connectors? And is it something that's easy and inexpensive to hire somebody to do, or could you even do this kind of bracketing yourself?
Yeah, you could. It's, you know, it might be a little tricky to get up in the attic area, but, you know, the connectors themselves are inexpensive. Typically, the hardest part is getting them in place. Obviously, during new construction, that's the best time to do it, but it can be retrofitted. It's just a matter of figuring out how to get the best access. Sometimes you can even access it from outside the home by taking down some of the aluminum or vinyl soffit, putting that connector in place, and then just putting the soffit back.
Great information. Mike Grimaldi, thank you so much for joining us. Some good information. As he mentioned, not a huge amount of money, too. So yet another one of these things that in the overall scheme of your home cost or your mortgage, we're not talking about big amounts, but they can make a big difference.
No, and think of the things that we talked about the last 3 nights. The windows and the garage door and the roof. It's all tied together literally and figuratively because you want to keep the windows and the garage door protected so the storm can't get into the home, because once it does, it can pressurize the home and cause the roof to come off. But if you do get any breach into your home or otherwise to keep the storm out, you want to do everything you can to make the roof as strong as you can. We've talked about multiple layers of protection and then these bracketing capabilities. I mean, this is not that expensive of a contraption to add to connect your roof to your rest of your structure. That little piece of metal could save your roof and save you tens of thousands of dollars. Amazing what little things you can do.
And a huge headache, too.
Yeah.
I mean, you go up there, you could potentially do this yourself in a weekend.
Yeah.
Whereas you could go literally months without a roof if there's widespread damage in your area.
That is the key, Mike, that we were getting across all week. A little bit of work now, you get back on your feet so much more quickly after a storm.
Good stuff there.
Great information. Yeah, still to come on Weather Underground. Much more on Hurricane Dorian. Of course, our top story. Dr. Knabb is back to break down what to expect once this hurricane closes in on the Bahamas and eventually the U.S. East Coast.
Head on down to the Try Target same-day delivery. Delivered to your door so you can do more. More thrill. More skill. More chill. Target run and done.
So Josh, you going for our Drive Safe and Safe discount?
Yep. Using the app, driving safe. You wanna go? You wanna go, bro? Hey, do not mess with my discount. Woo! You can save up to 30%. Let's go! Nice to meet you. Go get him, Tiger.
Sounds like you've got this.
Yeah, definitely.
Get a discount up to 30% with Drive Safe and Save from State Farm.
Would you like to try a burger made with plants?
Plants.
It's delicious, and I am a kid.
This is important news for members of the military who suffer from hearing loss or ringing in the ears, also known as tinnitus. If you or a loved one were issued these dual-ended combat earplugs and now have hearing loss or ringing in the ears, you may be eligible for a cash award and medical expenses from the earplug manufacturer. If you or a loved one were issued the dual-ended combat earplugs and now have hearing loss or ringing in the ears, call the law offices of Davis & Crump right now. Operators are standing by.
Imagine giving your kid a healthy smile. Imagine helping their teeth become 4 times stronger while preventing cavities up to 40%. Act Kids Fluoride Rinse. Flavor so delicious, your kids will love to swish. Stop imagining. Start acting.
Ready to break through allergy congestion? Reach for the dual action of Allegra D, the fastest non-drowsy antihistamine plus a powerful decongestant help you overcome tough symptoms for 24-hour relief. Get back to the moment with Allegra D.
Cool. Now through September 9th, get free sheets and 2 free Purple pillows with mattress purchase at purple.com/TV.
This is epic.
You're watching America's most trusted TV news network.
We've got a severe weather threat.
We are live on the ground. Right now, it's coming down.
The Weather Channel.
Oh, get your birdseed ready, honey.
United Healthcare helps connect you to care whenever you need it.
So I'm not going to need stitches then?
No, just the antibiotic cream.
United Healthcare.
Take the floor somewhere unexpected. Everything you need is at your fingertips and at the Home Depot. On-trend styles with innovations to make it pet-proof. Make it life-proof. Make it waterproof. Make it beautiful. And the Home Depot has everything you need to make it yours. Today is the day for doing, with even lower prices right now on vinyl plank, laminate, and tile, only from the Home Depot.
This is one of the most important days of my life, and you know who wasn't invited? Mosquitoes. That's why we've always had Orkin. Carl's so good. It's like he's never really left.
Ladies, I've got lavender and coconut.
Isn't he the cutest?
Smile.
Currently in our area, 83 degrees under sunny skies. Tonight, mostly clear, low 67. Winds south at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Thursday, intervals of clouds and sunshine. A stray shower or thunderstorm is possible. High 90. Thursday night, thunderstorms, gusty winds and small hail are possible. Low 67. Chance of rain 80%. Here's our 7-day outlook.
Awaiting a new advisory from the National Hurricane Center, but obviously all eyes, everyone in Florida watching this thing already, hearing about people at the grocery stores. I'm hearing from people there saying when and where. You know, the when may be a little bit more known, but even that's still a lot of questions. But the where, goodness gracious, we could really pinpoint anywhere in Florida.
Yeah, the good news is that we collectively in the weather community have gotten better at both, of telling you what is reasonably possible, what wind, what water could occur where you live, getting hazard specific, but also talking timing. We've got these new products that convey when the winds of tropical storm force will be arriving, so we can at least give you some idea how long you have to get ready for what's about to happen. So we don't yet have the intermediate public advisory from the Hurricane Center. Sometime within the next 10 minutes, they'll be sending that out. But one thing they're doing is sifting through both NOAA and Air Force Hurricane Hunter data. Both planes are out there right now, and they want to get all of that data considered before they update us on the intensity, the position, the forward motion, and so forth. It looks reasonably healthy on the satellite. The radar is more telling, though, isn't it? Wow, look at that. Very well-defined eye feature on the radar. It was much more ragged earlier, much more circular now. So very reasonably possible that the pressure has come down and the winds have come up. Again, here's the two planes. Here's the Air Force just now getting into the center. So that's new, fresh data that the Hurricane Center is going to be looking at here over the next few minutes. The NOAA plane has been in there, gone through a couple times, about to come in from the east. They measured winds that would be consistent with that 80-mile-per-hour intensity. So I haven't seen anything from either plane yet to say that it is stronger, but they'll be flying a little while longer. So even if things don't change at 8, they could change later. At 11, the forecast track and intensity will be updated. I don't anticipate major changes to this overall scenario, but been enough changes in the last 24 hours, all right? We've had enough of that, and unfortunately, the story has become clearer that the risk to Florida and other parts of the southeast United States has gone way, way up. We have to start planning for the strong possibility of a major hurricane coming ashore in the southeast U.S., if not getting very, very, very close. The scenario is a little bit clearer now, Mike, because the models are getting a better agreement that it's coming to Florida and the wind shear is going to be weak. This is just one European model scenario. Pretty much all the Florida Peninsula is in play for a landfall.
Having said that, Dr. Ned, we know a lot of people at home have questions. If you have questions, send them to us on Twitter or Facebook, but include the hashtag Hurricane Questions. We're going to do as many questions tonight as we possibly can and answer your questions that you may have about what this system may do. But the folks in Florida, today, they may be thinking, whoa, that escalated quickly. What do I need to be doing right now?
Well, even last night, remember, we were suggesting that maybe just in case things change and ramp up, you might want to start going shopping, and that advice still holds today because the closer we get to potential landfall in Florida later this week, the longer those lines are going to get, the shorter those supplies are going to be. Can you imagine anything more frustrating than waiting in line for a couple hours to get desperately needed supplies for your kids, for your family, and then they're out when you get to the front of that line? Go shopping and find out your evacuation zone today.
And the thing about it is, it may not necessarily be what it is right now, but it's the forecast that I think has everyone's attention.
Yeah.
And that's why already today in places like South Florida, we're seeing lines at the grocery stores.
Yeah, and because the confidence in the forecast is higher now, it's legitimate that people are starting to really do some preliminary preparations and shop and plan for evacuation. Decide where you're going to shelter during the storm. You don't necessarily have to evacuate hundreds of miles. Just get out of storm surge evacuation zones, out of flood-prone areas. Find a safe shelter or friend's home that can withstand the wind, and plan to stay there for a while with the stuff that you buy to last you maybe up to 7 days on your own if you get the worst of the hurricane.
For every member of your family.
Absolutely.
All right, now as far as things that you may need, actual supplies, there are several things that are high on your list.
Yeah, now this is in addition to the 7 days of water and non-perishable foods, gallon per person of water per day. But let's think outside the box on things that you might forget in a power outage that you are used to having when the power's on, okay? Generator, that's obviously one important thing that you might want to get, but operate it outdoors. Don't die from carbon monoxide poisoning. So many people have fallen into that trap. Get cash ahead of time, because when the power's out, those ATM machines are not going to be working. The credit cards aren't going to be swiping, so get cash ahead of time. Gas up the car. Do that early. Gas lines in Florida ahead of a hurricane are incredibly long, and then the gas stations start running out of gas. In the next few days, they'll be able to resupply. Get a propane grill with an extra tank and fill up both tanks, because if the power is out, you might be able to cook for days and days and days on that outdoor grill.
Very, very smart. Batteries on hand, solar power chargers, the hand crank chargers, those things can all help you out when you get a dying phone.
Yeah, because one of the first things that might get restored after a major hurricane hit is cell phone technology, cell phone connections enough to send text messages. So you're going to want to be able to recharge your phone. A battery-powered or solar-powered USB charger can go a long way. Oh, back up your computer data before the storm in case things at your home, the computers aren't holding the data anymore.
Yeah, maybe unplug them. Just
that
in case, too. All right, a lot more ahead on the show tonight, Alex.
Yeah, we've got the latest track on Hurricane Dorian, currently lashing the Caribbean, bringing heavy rain, strong winds, and high surf. We'll check in with Paul Goodloe in Puerto Rico. And, of course, we are monitoring where this storm is headed and what it will do, how much it will strengthen as it moves closer and closer to the Bahamas and the U.S. East Coast.
Take Prilosec OTC and take control of heartburn. So you don't have to stash antacids here, or here. Kick your antacid habit with Prilosec OTC. 1 pill a day, 24 hours, 0 heartburn.
Keeping the night interesting is all about setting the right tone. Lower carbs, lower calories, higher expectations. The light beer you've been waiting for has arrived. Corona Premier.
Stouffer's lasagna with meat and sauce has 2 times the beef of the leading meat sauce lasagna. That's double the tender ground beef baked into every cheesy, mouth-watering bite. When it comes to irresistible taste, more is always more. Stouffer's.
With bipolar I disorder, it can feel like there's too much to do, and you need to do it all. But mania, such as unusual changes in your mood, activity, or energy levels, can leave you on shaky ground. Ask your healthcare provider about Vraylar. Vraylar treats acute mania of bipolar I disorder and was proven in adults with mixed episodes who have both mania and depression. Elderly patients with dementia-related psychosis have an increased risk of death or stroke. Call your doctor about unusual changes in behavior or suicidal thoughts. Antidepressants can increase these in children and young adults. Report fever, stiff muscles, or confusion, which may mean a life-threatening reaction, or uncontrollable muscle movements, which may be permanent. Side effects may not appear for several weeks. High cholesterol, weight gain, high blood sugar, and decreased white blood cells, both of which can be serious or fatal, dizziness upon standing, falls, seizures, impaired judgment, heat sensitivity, and trouble swallowing may occur. Ask if Vraylar can help you find your balance.
Here's your Buick, sir. Actually, that's my Buick.
Your Buick doesn't have a roof rack. This is my Buick. How are we gonna fit in your mom's Buick?
Easy.
I like that new Buick.
Me too.
I was actually talking about that Buick.
I knew that.
Did you?
Buick's fresh new lineup is full of surprises. Current eligible non-GM owners and lessees get up to 16% below MSRP on most of these Buick models, or get over $7,000 on this 2019 Enclave Avenir.
At Safelite Auto Glass, we really pride ourselves on making it easy for you to get your windshield fixed. With Safelite, you can see exactly when we'll be there, saving you time for what you love most.
Now get 50% off all Domino's pizzas when you order online. 50% off sausage pizzas, handmade pan pizzas, even barbecue banana pepper pizzas. If you're into that, this week only get 50% off the menu price of 34 million pizza combinations at Domino's.com.
Next on Weather Underground, tracking Dorian, now a dangerous hurricane.
Yeah, stark contrast to 24 hours ago when there was some doubt Dorian would even survive. But tonight, this intensifying hurricane is wreaking havoc across portions of the Caribbean and headed north.
That's right, Dorian lashing the Virgin Islands in Puerto Rico with heavy rain, strong winds, and some high surf.
We've got live coverage with meteorologist Paul Goodloe in Puerto Rico as now Dorian moves away. And there's also concern increasing for the U.S. East Coast. Tonight, from Florida to the Carolinas, Dorian is forecast to intensify into a major hurricane. So hurricane expert Dr. Rick Knabb is here to discuss potential scenarios.
And we continue our week-long series on reducing the risk of hurricane damage to your home. And tonight, focusing on the roof and ways to keep the water out All those stories coming up in this special hour of Weather Underground. Thank you for staying with us. I'm Mike Bettis.
And I'm Alex Wilson. Tonight, all things Hurricane Dorian. We have a state of emergency currently in effect in Florida, and obviously we are awaiting the newest advisory.
That's right. So many of you have questions about Hurricane Dorian, its track, its intensity, what its impact will be to you and your community. Send us your questions on Twitter or on Facebook. Include the hashtag Hurricane Questions. We're going to do our best to answer as many of your questions in this hour as we can.
Absolutely. All right. I want to get very latest on this as we await that new advisory. Hurricane expert Dr. Rick Knabb here monitoring this. Puerto Rico fared well. Did not see any weakening, though, with the storm. We expected this to move over Puerto Rico. That would have probably taken some of the intensity down. New advisory in as well. So let's get the latest from you.
Okay, so the hurricane hunters have been out there, and they utilized that data to wait until the last minute, top of the hour, to issue the intermediate public advisory, but that's the way it should be done. You want to use all of the hurricane hunter data and give us the latest information. And they poured through all of that. And based on what I saw, based on what they saw, makes sense that the maximum sustained wind stayed at 80 miles an hour because the wind data from the hurricane hunters, both NOAA and Air Force, didn't show anything above 80 miles per hour sustained at the surface. However, the pressure has come down. It's down to 990 millibars. So that is perhaps portending more strengthening later. And I'll show you on the radar a little bit here why it's looking a little more organized as well. The motion is still northwest at 13, so it continues to, at a pretty good pace, depart Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands. It's now 60 miles north-northwest of San Juan, and because it's such a small storm, there's no tropical storm force winds in any of these areas anymore. And so all of the land-based tropical storm and hurricane watches and warnings have all been discontinued. So procedurally, one thing that means is that there's going to be an 11 p.m. advisory, a full update with new track and intensity forecasts at 11 p.m. tonight, but then there won't be a 2 a.m. intermediate, and then there'll be a full advisory at 5 a.m. So this will be the last intermediate public advisory until watches and warnings go up for the Bahamas and probably Florida later on. Here it is on the radar. Look at how well defined that eye has become. A little bit of a banding eye kind of feature, but it's more circular than it was. So I'm not surprised that the pressure's been falling, and this might be a preview of winds coming up later on. Now, here's where the hurricane hunters have been. This is the Air Force plane, I'm sorry, this is the NOAA plane that went from the south, and they went through a second time. They're about to come in a third time. And nowhere along the line here did they find really strong winds, anywhere near the 80 miles per hour. But they've got another pass or two to go, so there might be more to come from them. And here is the Air Force plane, and look at that, the surface winds that they're measuring as they went through, right there at about 80 miles an hour. So they're just confirming the intensity. So no changes yet. But those could be coming. This will be updated 3 hours from now. I don't expect really significant changes. In fact, they were forecasting tomorrow afternoon for the intensity to be 90 miles an hour. And so, you know, it's still 80 right now. I don't think this is going to be dramatically different later tonight. Maybe some, you know, updates to the cone in the latter part, just moving it along 6 hours. So, overall, the scenario is still what we've been saying for the last several hours, that you've got to prepare for the possibility of a major hurricane coming ashore on the east coast of Florida. And if not there, it could be somewhere else in the southeast U.S. if it slows down and makes landfall somewhere else. But get ready by Sunday morning. So that means, here we are, Wednesday night. You got Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 3 full days, and a little change on either side to get ready by planning your evacuation, putting up shutters, and so forth. Here are all the possible tracks of the center of Dorian, and all of the Florida Peninsula is in play. And it's also important to remind you that there are possibilities that take it into the Gulf of Mexico. The northern Gulf Coast could eventually see the center of Dorian. The southeast coast could. Look at some of these tracks that come up this way. But bottom line is, it's going to be slowing down. That cone, the lines get closer together as it approaches Florida. These meandering tracks are concerning, Mike, because that means longer duration of winds and storm surge and heavy rainfall totals adding up, in addition to the major hurricane force winds.
As we get a better grasp on the surrounding atmosphere, especially with the planes out there sampling it, over time, you know, we expect that cone to narrow some, right?
Well, the actual cone won't change size out to 5 days, but as we get closer, you get into the narrower part of the cone. Yes, but what we want, I think, what we're really getting at is, are the models going to...
The fringes, do you expect that maybe those fringes will start to be pared back a little?
Yeah, in the spread of the models and so forth. I think so. But given that there's so much spread in that part of the track now, I wonder, are we really going to have the models in good agreement over Florida like they will be into the Bahamas? Because the steering currents will be strong over the Bahamas. When it gets to Florida, will those steering collapse and will the models still be all over the place? Well, I hope they come into better agreement because I don't want to see that kind of uncertainty late in the game.
A lot of it depends on things that are not necessarily the hurricane. It's the surround. What's the high pressure ridge going to be?
Yeah.
Where's it going to set up? How strong is it going to be? When does it weaken? When does it move?
Yeah, Dorian doesn't have its own steering wheel. It's got to follow the path that's driven by that high pressure ridge to the north.
The mystery will be solved here eventually. So, Dr. Knabb, thank you very much for that. Let's update you on what we know right now with Hurricane Dorian. The official forecast makes this a major hurricane before a potential landfall somewhere along the southeast coast. Florida now under a state of emergency. One confirmed death in Puerto Rico, a man dying while preparing his home for the storm.
Our Paul Goodloe is in Puerto Rico on the northeastern tip of the island. Joins us now live. Paul, obviously a quiet evening, beautiful sunset after a better day than what we had expected. Great news for the island of Puerto Rico.
Yeah, we were definitely blessed to have the hurricane push well east of the island. I shouldn't say well east. It might have been maybe 20 miles off to the east at its nearest point here. But just kind of reiterating what Dr. Knabb was talking about with the latest advisory here, good news for Puerto Rico. There are no longer any hurricane watches or tropical storm warnings issued for this island, as well as we had hurricane warnings up for Vieques and Culebra, U.S. Virgin Islands. Those warnings have been dropped as well. British Virgin Islands, no more warnings for you as well. So that's some great news. We're starting to see Dorian push away, which means improving weather wholesale for the island of Puerto Rico, as well as the islands offshore and the U.S. Virgin Islands as well. But another thing is, it's still in the ocean, and Dorian is gathering strength. And we all know that the waves are caused by wind. So as the wind field increases and intensifies with Dorian, we still have a rip current risk all across this island, across the U.S. and British Virgin Islands as well. So it is still a big concern here. We're going to still feel the impacts on the coastline. And this is a beautiful place to vacation. Don't need a passport to get here. So a lot of people, even we're coming in here, are here. Even the hotel we're in last night. People checking in to extend their have a vacation before Labor Day holiday. So you still have to use caution at the beaches. Watch out for weaker swimmers or the little ones as well. And pay attention to any flags you might have on the beach to warn you what's going on. But overall, as you mentioned, Alex, we definitely dodged one here in terms of a direct impact in terms of a Dorian coming across Puerto Rico, which was forecast even yesterday afternoon and yesterday evening. So to have that system push offshore is great for Puerto Rico in terms of missing the strongest winds and the heaviest rains. But that also means that Dorian was not disturbed as it strengthens now, which means it could organize quickly as it heads to the Bahamas and eventually to the southeastern U.S. And by the way, Alex, talking about the Labor Day weekend coming up, even cities like Orlando, which a lot of people are going to for this holiday weekend, could have some major impacts as we head on towards Saturday, Sunday, even this coming Monday. Alex?
Yeah, good point. Thank you so much, Paul. And to talk a little bit more about some of those cities that could be farther in line of Miami or Orlando, even in Savannah, Georgia, we got to understand the players that are going to be working and steering this system as it moves off to the north and west.
Yeah, what's taking it northwest right now is the fact that it is southwest of the ridge that's over the Atlantic, okay? And that weakness in the ridge off to the north that is there now is going to get replaced by this big ridge right here. And so you see how the pressure lines are aligned straight east-west, but also the upper level winds are aligned the same way. So it's a deep layer ridge, and there's just not going to be any wind shear.
Right.
It's going to be all an easterly current, and that gives us, unfortunately, a high amount of confidence that it's going to be moving westward in the general direction of Florida. But that kind of pattern with weak wind shear over very warm waters is also the kind of pattern that Andrew found itself in, straight west, weak wind shear, rapid intensification. So I mean, I'm not saying this is going to play out exactly like Andrew, but Andrew teaches us how this pattern can lead to a major hurricane ramping up.
We also talk about the Gulf still being in play. This particular forecast, run of this forecast model, does take this over the Florida Peninsula, over into the Gulf. That's an option. Do you think the Southeast, a Savannah, a Charleston, could also be in play?
Yeah, this one European model run, like you say, is just one solution, but it does illustrate that the Gulf is one of the possibilities. And, you know, one thing that's going to happen is these NOAA G4 jet missions surrounding the hurricane are going to keep providing data to the models so that maybe they come into better agreement, okay? And there's also going to be all these soundings that are launched to try to get a good definition of that ridge. And hopefully that will bring things into really, really good agreement. But given all of that, there's still, at this long lead time, a lot of possibilities, including that one European model run that goes into the Gulf, some that even avoid landfall in Florida and then slowly come up to the Carolinas coastline. But there's also a lot in between. Everybody in Florida on the East Coast could get a landfall. Anybody in the state of Florida could receive the center of Dorian. And there's also this slow meandering nature to the track, because you notice on the cone, the lines get closer and closer together as we get to the end of the cone.
Showing us that slowdown in forward speed.
Yeah, so it's very well defined up to this point. And then after this, it gets messier. So still a lot of uncertainties remain.
Yeah, but really, honestly, any side of Florida also needs to be on alert for this. So we could be looking at that. It's been a soaker. So, Mike, rain. You know, we've seen so much rain. We've seen such an influx of rain in Florida. Now we add more.
Oh, absolutely. You know, we take a look at places like, say, Daytona Beach or up toward Charleston. If this thing slows down at all, these are places where you could get hammered with inches and inches and inches of rain. And some of these places, especially in Florida, we've been really soaked. There have been a lot of places that have really had to bear the brunt of day after day after day of thunderstorms this month alone. And so I know we've got great soil here that drains pretty well. Having said that, have we set the table for potentially flooding issues in a lot of different places?
Yeah, so I wanted to keep this European ensemble graphic up here because there's another point to really emphasize here. Remember last year when Florence was crossing the Atlantic and we showed a graphic like this, and we showed how the spaghetti bowl starts to take shape late in the forecast period when it gets near land. And we were making the point that even if it doesn't come ashore as a major hurricane, it could be a major inland flood disaster. There's a little bit of that going on here too, because this is a moving hurricane. This is a meandering, slow-moving, or stalling hurricane. That could ramp up the rainfall totals.
And there are places in here, Alabama, Georgia, the Carolinas, where we could be more prone to flooding because of our soil type, where it gets a little bit more like clay than sand.
Yeah, and if you just look at Sunday through Wednesday, Sunday when the rain maybe starts arriving, and up until Wednesday, these are the areas we're most concerned about. The whole Florida Peninsula, that's the more likely location that we could see the heavy rainfall and flooding. Because remember, some of those tracks are any part of the Florida Peninsula. But because of the possibility of it getting into the Gulf and then meandering here, or turning this way, or coming over Florida to go north, a lot of you in southern parts of Alabama, Georgia, and the Carolinas could get some flash flooding. But that's only through Wednesday. If it gets farther into the Gulf and it's slow moving here, Louisiana, Alabama come into play. If it goes farther north, then other places in the eastern U.S. could come into play. But let's not think that this is all going to be about wind and all going to be about storm surge. Slow motion is one of the characteristics of a hurricane that we don't like, in addition to the strong winds.
Not to mention, if we end up getting, say, a storm, and it's not inconceivable, this happened before, a storm maybe that puts on the brakes just off the coast here, you're going to have a prolonged storm surge event potentially.
Yes, slow motion is always worse than fast motion because it lengthens the duration of the rainfall. It lengthens the time over which the winds can blow the ocean, like Mike says, into the coastline area and cause storm surge. And slow motion lengthens the duration of the wind event too. So slow is bad, but it is going to be slowing down. And I want to remind everybody how track dependent heavy rainfall is in a major hurricane, especially if it remains small. This is the European rainfall forecast based on its one model run, its main run, but that is a track across South Florida. Look at GFS. The track is farther north.
Totally different.
Totally different. So all y'all have a significant inland flooding risk.
Now you're talking our language.
Yes.
All y'all.
Oh, I'm back in Texas all of a sudden.
Dr. Knapp, thank you very much. Alex?
All right, coming up more on our top story, Hurricane Dorian. Live coverage from Paul Goodloe in Puerto Rico. And we are going to be answering your questions. Send them our way on Twitter using the hashtag Hurricane Questions. Our hurricane expert, Dr. Knapp, will continue to break down what you want to know about this storm, as well as the latest forecast.
Dealing with psoriatic arthritis pain was so frustrating.
My skin, it was embarrassing.
My joints, they hurt.
The pain and swelling.
The tenderness.
The psoriasis.
I had to find something that worked on all of this.
I found Cosentix. Now, watch me.
Real people with active psoriatic arthritis are getting real relief with Cosentix. It's a different kind of targeted biologic. Cosentix treats more than just the joint pain of psoriatic arthritis. It even helps stop further joint damage. Don't use if you're allergic to Cosentix. Before starting, get checked for tuberculosis. An increased risk of infections and lowered ability to fight them may occur. Tell your doctor about an infection or symptoms. If your inflammatory bowel disease symptoms develop or worsen, or if you've had a vaccine or plan to, serious allergic reactions may occur.
I got real relief.
I got clearer skin and feel better.
Now, watch me.
Get real relief with Cosentix.
So, Josh, you going for our Drive Safe and Safe discount?
Yep. Using the app, driving safe. You want to go? You want to go, bro? Hey, do not mess with my discount. You can save up to 30%. Let's go! Nice to meet you. Go get him, Tiger.
Sounds like you've got this.
Yeah, definitely.
Get a discount up to 30% with Drive Safe and Save from State Farm.
That must be me right there.
There you are, Mom. That does kind of look like our family. What are you wearing?
Ancestry has over 400,000 yearbooks from all across the country. Start searching for your friends and family, free at Ancestry.com.
This is nice.
Yeah. Yeah, this is nice.
How did you make the dip so rich and creamy?
Oh, it's Philadelphia.
Family recipe.
Can I see it?
No.
Philadelphia dips. So good, you'll take all the credit.
Take the floor somewhere unexpected. Everything you need is at your fingertips and at the Home Depot. On-trend styles with innovations to make it pet-proof. Make it life-proof. Make it waterproof. Make it beautiful. And the Home Depot has everything.
Have you or a loved one been diagnosed with ovarian cancer after regular use of Johnson & Johnson baby powder? You may be entitled to compensation. A December 2018 Reuters news report states that from 1971 to the early 2000s, Johnson & Johnson was aware their raw talc and finished powders sometimes tested positive for small amounts of asbestos, but didn't disclose it to regulators or the public. Substantial verdicts have already been awarded because of Johnson & Johnson's failure to warn the public of this risk, including a $4.69 billion verdict in July of 2018 and 3 other verdicts totaling over $614 million. If you or a loved one has been diagnosed with ovarian cancer after regular use of Johnson & Johnson baby powder for feminine hygiene purposes, you may be entitled to compensation. How do you fight for the compensation you deserve? You choose the right legal team that has the experience, support staff, and resources to get the most compensation for your injuries. Call now.
Call 1-800-650-0784. That's 1-800-650-0784. Call now for your free information kit.
This is epic!
You're watching America's most trusted TV news network.
We've got a severe weather threat.
We are live on the ground. Right now, it's coming down.
The Weather Channel.
Currently in our area, 81 degrees under fair skies. Tonight, generally clear. Low 67. Winds south at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Thursday, sunshine and clouds mixed. A stray shower or thunderstorm is possible. High 91. Thursday night, thunderstorms, gusty winds, and small hail are possible. Low 67. Chance of rain 80%. Here's our 7-day outlook.
All throughout the evening, we've been asking for your questions on Hurricane Dorian. Send them our way using the hashtag Hurricane Questions. We're going to be answering a few of them right now, but still time to get them in and get some questions answered throughout the show, as well as the following show. They'll be answering questions as in addition to us.
Our answer man is this guy right here.
Yeah.
Dr. Rick Knabb.
We're going to rapid fire him.
Former National Hurricane Center director, two-time Weather Channel tropical expert. All right, so Frank wants to know this, Dr. Knabb. How soon can the storm surge of Dorian be calculated since the development of the hurricane is in its early stages?
Frank, that is an excellent question. Now, the real true answer is you can calculate it now, but it's not a good idea if you base that calculation on a single track. So if you were to take one exact track and intensity along this path and say, okay, based on that track and intensity and size, I'm going to calculate the storm surge. Well, then you get storm surge right there. But you could be completely wrong if the hurricane ends up down here. So all we can do right now is highlight the areas that could receive storm surge. And right now, that's the entire east coast of Florida is at risk. So the best question to answer is right now, am I in an evacuation zone? And where would I go and how would I get there if I'm told to evacuate later this week? And by the way, they will start issuing those potential storm surge flooding maps when a hurricane watch is issued. So maybe, say, starting Friday morning if a hurricane watch is issued for Sunday morning arrival of the winds.
Okay.
Very good.
All right, let's get to another one. This one from Joni. I have tickets to the Rolling Stones concert Saturday night at Hard Rock Stadium in Miami Gardens. Need to fly down Friday morning, return Monday morning. Are things likely to change, or should I just go ahead and cancel now?
First of all, what do the Rolling Stones know about setting up concerts where hurricanes are coming? You know, the Barry thing. They had to delay it by one night. My goodness, what luck on bad luck. But anyway, don't cancel anything yet in Miami, because that's one reason why hurricane watches and warnings aren't issued until 48 and 36 hours in advance, because it's too early to take certain actions. There's no evacuation instructions yet. So if, say, Friday morning, a hurricane watch is issued, then maybe it's time to be canceling things, because officials will start canceling things.
Right.
But because the arrival of winds of tropical storm force is around Sunday morning, that means maybe on about Friday morning a hurricane watch might be issued. But if it ends up going farther north, maybe South Florida doesn't go into hurricane watch at all. So it's too early to cancel things.
Should Mick Jagger be a hurricane expert for us?
I sure would like to know what he knows about concerts being scheduled where hurricanes are going.
Maybe he should be a storm tracker.
Yeah, no, obviously not a hurricane expert. We got one of those, but like he's like a storm clairvoyant this year.
Is he?
Yeah.
Well, hopefully Dr.
Get him on the phone.
Hopefully Dr. Nabb's answer gave you some satisfaction, if you get what I'm saying. So David asks
well
this.
Done,
we're going to Savannah for our 25th anniversary on September 1st. Should we make other plans?
Okay, September 1st. So we're talking 29, 30, 31st, 1st, 4 days from now. Savannah, over the next 5 days, you have a chance of getting winds of tropical storm force. And where that 4-day point is that, it's out in here. If it ends up being a little farther north, a little faster, again, you don't cancel anything now, but is Charleston, is Savannah, is Jacksonville in play for a direct hit from Dorian? Unfortunately, yes.
So watch it. Keep the plans going, because, again, a lot can change between now and then.
And watch these trends on the probabilities, too, and watch how the forecast changes. Maybe it'll change in your favor, and you won't have to cancel anything.
Now, if the Rolling Stones have a concert in Savannah, then yes, cancel it.
Yeah, exactly.
Stormy Weather DC says we're in the midst of building a home in Southeast Florida. What, if any, precautions do you recommend for new homes still under construction during a hurricane?
First thing I would say is, because the home is under construction, it might not be fully ready to take the full brunt of a hurricane, and try to put away things that are part of the construction process that could become projectiles for other people around the area. So, clean up the site so that it doesn't become, a source of projectiles. But also, you can bolt things down in such a way that there's less chance of things flying off of what has been constructed already. And also, while you're at it, before the hurricane comes, put a few more of those braces that connect the roof to the wall that we showed you tonight while the home's still under construction. It's a great time to make it a little bit stronger based on those tips we gave you tonight.
Really worried about how much water was going to get into my home under construction.
Yeah, I don't know how far along it is in construction, but maybe cover it in some extra plywood or something. Yeah.
Right? How about this one from JRK? Do you believe that the rapid intensification is possible or likely with this storm?
It certainly is possible. In fact, most major hurricanes undergo rapid intensification on the way to getting there. So somewhere between now and 115 miles an hour, it will probably ramp up very quickly, especially because it's so small. And then it could go through some downs and ups. Like you talked about, Alex, it could go through an eyewall replacement cycle, become a weaker but larger storm. Expect a lot of changes with Dorian.
Okay. All right, a lot to watch with this. A lot of questions. So keep sending them our way. Yeah, guys, you're impressing us. Also watching strong thunderstorms in the Northeast tonight. We've had issues up into New England. There's a look at Boston, still in the rain. In fact, some moderate rain, especially on the northeast side of town. That's been throwing a kink into your travel plans. We've got heavy rain, also areas north of Manchester, New Hampshire.
So how did this happen?
I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride.
Oh, get your birdseed ready, honey.
United Healthcare helps connect you to care whenever you need it.
So I'm not going to need stitches then?
No, just the antibiotic cream. Oh, watch out. Oh.
United Healthcare.
Try Drive Up at Target. Delivered to your car door so you can do more. More refill. More recharge. More relax. Target run and done.
Breathe. In and out. Every breath makes you feel closer to nature. And every sip makes nature feel closer to you. Michelob Ultra Pure Gold. Beer in its organic form.
Banjo! I found you. Go home. Banjo! Sorry, it won't happen again.
On an endless road.
Come on, let's go home.
Oh, I found you.
After 10 years, we've covered a lot of miles. Good thing I got a Subaru.
Love is out there. Find it in a Subaru Crosstrek.
Get 0% during the Subaru A Lot to Love event.
You know that look? That life of the party look. Walk it off look. 1 more mile look. Reply all look. Own your look with fewer lines. There's only one Botox Cosmetic. It's the only one FDA approved to temporarily make frown lines, crow's feet, and forehead lines look better. The effects of Botox Cosmetic may spread hours to weeks after injection, causing serious symptoms. Alert your doctor right away, as difficulty swallowing, speaking, breathing, eye problems, or muscle weakness may be a sign of a life-threatening condition. Do not receive Botox Cosmetic if you have a skin infection. Side effects may include allergic reactions, injection site pain, headache, eyebrow, eyelid drooping, and eyelid swelling. Tell your doctor about your medical history, muscle or nerve conditions, and medications, including botulinum toxins, as these may increase the risk of serious side effects. So give that just saw a puppy look. And whatever that look is, look like you with fewer lines. Text now to get your exclusive offer.
What's the secret to natural bliss? We choose perfect, simple ingredients. Farm fresh milk and cream, pure cane sugar, and Madagascar vanilla. That's one tasty secret. 100% natural bliss, 100% of the time.
Well, take a look at this. One of the worst places to be, arguably, in the midst of any tropical system, let alone a hurricane. It's a sailboat in the U.S. Virgin Islands. Wind and waves rocking this boat around. It's near Charlotte Amalie.
Winds, by the way, here in the Virgin Islands clocked as high as 97 miles an hour on an anemometer that was parked about 230 feet above sea level. But I kind of feel like I wouldn't really want to take my chances on a sailboat in a tropical storm or hurricane.
I feel like we've seen instances of this going badly for larger ships. I mean, the perfect storm. You don't want to be out there in a boat during one of these events.
You like that ultimately ends up being a storm story.
Yeah.
You know what this makes me think of too? And there's so many things to talk about and what people in Florida should be doing to prepare. But if a major hurricane is coming toward Florida, a lot of people are going to need to move their boats, right? And start planning for that now, because it can take some time to transport your boat either over land or over water safely, to put it in a dock, a location that will be away from the storm.
That is a great point.
We lose a lot of boats in hurricanes.
Yeah.
A lot of them sink, unfortunately, and then it's a huge cleanup and it's a huge mess. It's a huge insurance claim, all that. It's just a huge headache. So, as far as where we go from here, what would you tell people when they wake up tomorrow? What are you going to expect when you wake up tomorrow morning?
Well, I don't think the overall scenario is going to change tremendously. We might be able to say that, well, the chances of hurricane conditions in one spot have gone down a little bit, and maybe they've gone up a little bit in another place. But I think tomorrow morning we're still probably going to be talking about everybody in Florida being at risk, and a lot of other folks still being at risk as well. But as the days go on, we'll start to be able to narrow it down more and more. But this is why hurricane watches aren't issued until 2 days in advance. And with the arrival time of Sunday morning, it might not be till Friday morning that watches go up. So Thursday will kind of be the watch to see where that might be set up. We're also going to be very closely monitoring Dorian's intensity, because that could play into the intensity forecast. And right now, it's a small hurricane with 80-mile-an-hour winds. It has now cleared Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands. At least the tropical storm conditions have. A little bit of rain still going on, but the weather is dramatically improving. All of the coastal and island watches and warnings for tropical storm and hurricane are down. But Dorian is on the way up, it appears. Hurricane hunters are monitoring it. They're flying in it right now. Here's the NOAA plane that took off from Barbados and has gone through a couple of times. They measured surface winds with the SFMR instrument up near 80 miles an hour, consistent with the 5 p.m. advisory. Same thing with the Air Force, a couple times measuring near 80 miles an hour. So based on that, the Hurricane Center didn't make any changes to the intensity at 8 p.m. At 11 p.m., they will update this forecast track and intensity. I don't expect major changes. It'll just be moved along. One thing I want to reiterate is it's not just about where it's going and not just about how strong it'll be. We don't know how large it will be in here. And also, look at how these lines progressively get closer and closer together. These are all 1 day apart. This slowdown near the end is concerning for long duration of winds, greater duration of storm surge, and Mike and Alex racking up those rainfall totals. Inland flooding could be one of the many life-threatening hazards of this hurricane.
Yeah, so I don't want you to think, oh, I don't live on the coast. It's not going to be an issue, obviously, depending on that track. A lot of people are going to be in play.
It's played out time and time again in numerous places. Dr. Knabb, thank you for that. Well, the outer edges of Dorian, currently skirting past Puerto Rico. Our Paul Goodloe is in Puerto Rico for us tonight. Paul, you know, one thing that's been interesting to watch over the course of the last couple of hours with you, or maybe even hear, is that we hear crickets, we hear frogs. That's a good sign, I think.
Yeah, they call them the, I think it's called the coquet. They're basically tree frogs, or they're different species, but they're all kind of lumped in together, so you can hear them. That squeaking, that's the tree frogs. And a few crickets, but really it's the frogs out here. We saw some pretty big frogs bouncing around here. There are even some bats flying around as well. So when the animals start coming out, that's a good sign that the weather is starting to calm down here. And we're seeing a little bit of light rain right now, but I've lost my rain hat and my rain pants because the heavier rain was only spits and drizzles and kind of small phases of that in some of the outer bands coming through. But that was earlier this afternoon. Now we're approaching the 9 o'clock hour, and we're seeing just some light drizzle on again, off again. But most of the time this evening, it's been fairly light to almost non-existent rain and a little light breeze or so. But we have definitely fared pretty well island-wide here. Unfortunately for the preparations, a man did fall off his roof close to the San Juan area in Bayamon, and he did die. And so we do have one victim already, but it could have been so much worse. And while we're definitely breathing a sigh of relief here, the U.S. Virgin Islands got hit a little harder today with a direct hit of a tropical storm and a hurricane, but now we're all crossing our fingers to hope that things fare well as it moves towards the Bahamas and eventually even Florida. Guys?
All right, Paul, thank you so much for your report.
Yeah.
Good news out of Puerto Rico today.
We dodged a huge bullet there, thank goodness, right? Hey, coming up here on Weather Underground still, we've been talking all this week about the best ways to protect your home during a hurricane. Tonight, we're focusing on your roof and the steps that you can take to keep it attached and to keep the water out.
And of course, monitoring the very latest in Dorian's track. What's going to be steering it and who could be in line as we look towards the Bahamas and the U.S. southeast coastline?
Remember childhood? And these little red boxes? And our sweet little sun-made raisins. Life was always play. And worries, what were they? Remember childhood? Don't forget, it never left.
Exactly. Liberty Mutual customizes your car insurance, so you only pay for what you need.
Nice. But, what's up with your partner?
Not again. Mimo, that's your reflection. Only pay for what you need.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
Norwegian's Free at Sea lets you choose up to 5 free offers, like free unlimited open bar, free shore excursions, friends and family sail free, and more. Your next vacay awaits from just $1.99. Norwegian Cruise Line. Feel free.
Now get 50% off all Domino's pizzas when you order online. 50% off sausage pizzas, handmade pan pizzas, even barbecue banana pepper pizzas. If you're into that, this week only get 50% off the menu price of 34 million pizza combinations at Domino's.com.
Son, I need to tell you something.
What is it, Dad?
If you ever have any questions, you call 1-877-522-5001.
Dad, I've always wanted to hear you say that.
I wish my dad would have said that to me.
Make father-son time truly special with Dos Equis. Keep it interessante.
Attention, this is a legal alert for anyone who has used Roundup Weed Killer and been diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. If you used Roundup Weed Killer and have been diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, you may be entitled to significant compensation. A multi-million-dollar verdict was recently awarded to a man whose non-Hodgkin's lymphoma was linked to Roundup Weed Killer. If you used Roundup Weed Killer and were diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, you may be entitled to significant compensation. Call now.
Do you have concerns about mild memory loss related to aging? Prevagen is the #1 pharmacist-recommended memory support brand. You can find it in the vitamin aisle in stores everywhere. Prevagen, healthier brain, better life.
Mirror, mirror on the wall. Makeup mode. Done. Start Happily Ever After playlist.
Starting playlist.
When does the nail salon open?
At 9 a.m.
Ooh, remind me to update my profile pic.
Setting reminder.
Add catnip to my shopping list.
Okay.
Shower, shower.
Welcome back into Weather Underground. We are tracking the very latest on Hurricane Dorian. Currently a Category 1 hurricane with winds at 80 miles an hour as of the latest 8 p.m. advisory from the National Hurricane Center. No changes, but we do anticipate strengthening in the coming days. Pressure did go down 990 millibars. Your current pressure moving to the northeast at 13 miles an hour. So this moving away from Puerto Rico and the U.S. Virgin Islands, eventually headed towards the U.S. southeast coast.
But when it comes to reducing hurricane damage, especially from wind and rain, protecting your home, definitely key.
And guys, I went to the Insurance Institute for Business and Home Safety to help us learn how to protect one of the most vulnerable parts of our home. And today we're focusing on the roof. And guys, right here, what I have is a roof mock-up. Remember how we talked last hour about how you can tape these seams between the plywood to protect the water from getting in from the outside? There's also a way that you could protect it from the inside by spraying this foam up into the attic. So that's one of the things we're going to talk to the folks from Flash and IBHS about tonight. And I talked about this and other ways to protect your roof with Ann Cope, the chief engineer at the IBHS. So Ann, we've talked about the importance of the roof keeping the water out. And there are different options of what you do, whether you're re-roofing or not, and even the kinds of materials you use when you're re-roofing.
Absolutely. So we showed the stronger felt, the 30-pound felt. This is another material. It's synthetic, and you can see it kind of has a reinforcement in it attached with the button cap, and we've still got the taped seams. So this is another method that you can use when you're re-roofing.
So it can be thinner if it is a stronger, more reinforced material.
Absolutely.
Now, if you're not re-roofing, what can you do from the underside to increase the chances that water doesn't get into your home?
Right. Let's say you just got a new roof and you're watching this show, you're like, I just got a new roof. You can still come in from underneath and do a closed cell foam. And it looks like this right here.
So how would this be installed?
So this is going to be installed from inside the attic. Instead of the plywood, we've used plexiglass so you can see through it. But somebody would come into the attic and spray this up against the rafters or trusses in this pattern. This seals from below, so the water can't get all the way through to your attic.
So this is on the underside of the seam where the tape might be.
Right. It's just coming in from the underside and doing the tape on the bottom. So it has to be closed cell foam so that it doesn't allow water to go through it. But you can do this from the underside.
Any pros and cons you want to highlight between the two in terms of their reliability, costs, and so forth?
We've tested both of these in our lab and found them to be effective. What we have also found is sometimes it's harder to get every single nook and cranny with the spray foam. And the spray foam is going to be a little bit more expensive because you have to come in from underneath, and most of the time you're going to have to hire a professional. So it might be more expensive, but it's the one option that you can do if you're not installing a new roof.
Well, Mike Romoldi joins us now. He's the Senior VP of Education and Technical Programs for the Federal Alliance for Safe Homes, otherwise known as FLASH. Thanks so much for joining us. You know, we talk about the roof being such a critical part of your home, and so protecting it and using all of these tips and tricks that Dr. Knabb talked about, so vital.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. You know, the idea is a strong roof and strong walls. You know, the goal is to keep the roof on and keep the water out. And, you know, we achieve that through strong building codes. You know, like we see here with the possibility of using spray foam, it's a great alternative. It's a great supplement, you know, to using our enhanced connections for nailing, things like that. And obviously keeping the water out through using, you know, a seam tape like we saw, or the spray foam adhesive, because that can do both as well.
Okay, Mike, I've got this portion of a home that you sent me, right? Okay, so we've got three representations of connecting the roof to a wall, okay? Now this middle one has this brace here that's got this interesting angle. Is this the best option as compared to the other two options where you've got nails in various places?
Yeah, that's your standard metal connector, Dr. Knabb. That's a great option. The one on the left side of that where you'll see two nails, which are called toenails, that's typically how homes have been put together for the longest time. And it holds the truss in place except when there's a wind load event or an uplift event and the nails pull right out.
Right.
And then the opposite side of that, you'll see that orange head little screw. That's the latest technology from our friends at Simpson that made the mock-up for us. And that actually replaces the metal connector, and it has the same uplift resistance.
There's always some cool new technology. And the thing about it is, Mike, this isn't necessarily exclusive to people that live in hurricane-prone areas. If you live in a thunderstorm area, if you live in an area that tends to get high winds, this is a great thing for you to have.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, the best part about that is all of these little things can account for maybe 2% more in your whole home. So if you do the math, that's like $1 a day for the lifetime of your mortgage. And we like to say 2% more, but 100% better.
Now, Mike, what can people do? Can they go up into their attic and go see if they have these kinds of connectors? And is it something that's easy and inexpensive to hire somebody to do, or could you even do this kind of bracketing yourself?
Yeah, you could. It's, you know, it might be a little tricky to get up in the attic area, but, you know, the connectors themselves are inexpensive. Typically, the hardest part is getting them in place. Obviously, during new construction, that's the best time to do it, but it can be retrofitted. It's just a matter of figuring out how to get the best access. Sometimes you can even access it from outside the home by taking down some of the aluminum or vinyl soffit, putting that connector in place, and then just putting the soffit back.
Now, this is something that a lot of homeowners, if you feel like you're handy enough, you could do this yourself.
Yeah, these brackets that you install here are not complicated engineering devices. It's simply bolted into the roof part onto the wall part. And it's amazing how this one little piece of metal can serve to keep the roof attached to the rest of the structure. And like Mike was showing us too, there's these new bolts that they put in down here.
So what is that exactly? It kind of looks like just a screw.
Yeah, and it's going up in this direction to affix the roof down to the wall, so it could be a replacement for this. But both of them are good ways to do it instead of just nailing this little strap right here into there. That's not as firm of a connection. But what it's amazing to me is how inexpensive these pieces are relative to the cost savings and the ability to get your life back to normal that would happen if this roof came off.
Yeah, so many of these things are relatively minor investments when you talk about if you didn't have them, what you'd have to pay down the road.
Yeah, and then the other thing we talked about tonight is tape on those seams of the plywood that make up the roof surface. I mean, that's just a few $100s for the whole roof as compared to tens of thousands of dollars of the cost to install a roof or to repair it. Yeah.
Things that you can do now to save yourself down the road. Stick around answering your questions about Hurricane Dorian when we come back.
Discover new San Pellegrino Essenza, a twist of Mediterranean flavors with the gentle bubbles of San Pellegrino. Add a twist of flavor. San Pellegrino Essenza, tastefully Italian.
Well, it finally happened, Zachary. Somebody burned down my she shed.
Nobody burned down your she shed, Cheryl.
Well, my she shed's on fire.
Your she shed was struck by lightning.
Zachary, is my she shed covered by State Farm?
Your she shed's covered, Cheryl.
You hear that, Victor? I'm getting a new she shed.
She shear?
Mm-hmm.
That's wonderful news.
Home insurance trusted by more people than any other. State Farm.
This hot rod runs on unleaded, but this mom runs on the new 2 for $4.
Attention farm workers and groundskeepers. A popular weed killer contains glyphosate, a chemical now classified as a probable carcinogen by the World Health Organization. Workers exposed to this weed killer on the job may be at a higher risk for non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. If you or someone you know was exposed and diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, you may be entitled to compensation.
Call Sokolov Law, 1-800-292-3580 for a free legal consultation. That's 1-800-292-3580. I'm a non-attorney spokesperson.
No matter what you're building, get professional results with Quikrete fast-setting concrete in the red bag. It sets hard in minutes. Find out more at Quikrete.com. Quikrete, for over 70 years, it's what America's made of.
Watt inverter generator or a 40-volt cordless blower, up to a $500 value. Call or go online today. Power your life with Generac.
Stream your news just like everything else you love with Local Now. It's completely free and ready to go when and where you are. Local Now. Find it in your favorite app store.
Work's more fulfilling. Carpool's more fun. Snack time tastes fresher. Glad I brought more than one.
Take the feeling with you. Sabra Snackers. Feel good food.
I just had Sabra hummus and now I feel good.
Liberty Mutual customizes your car insurance, so you only pay for what you need.
I wish I could shake your hand.
Granted. Only pay for what you need.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
Take the floor somewhere unexpected. Everything you need is at your fingertips and at the Home Depot. On-trend styles with innovations to make it pet-proof. Make it life-proof. Make it waterproof. Make it beautiful. And the Home Depot has everything you need to make it yours. Today is the day for doing, with even lower prices right now on vinyl plank, laminate, and tile, only from the Home Depot.
Currently in our area, 79 degrees under sunny skies. Tonight, generally clear. Low 67. Winds south at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Thursday, sunshine and clouds mixed. A stray shower or thunderstorm is possible. High 91. Thursday night, thunderstorms, gusty winds and small hail are possible. Low 67. Chance of rain 80%. Here's our 7-day outlook.
All right, welcome back in. I want to get the very latest, obviously the big story, the big talker now. Already in parts of Florida, grocery stores are filling up, and rightfully so, because Dorian is headed towards the U.S. southeast coast. Still a lot of questions, though, with the ultimate path.
Yeah, I've lived in Florida. I've done the hurricane prep thing way early. I go shopping for supplies. I go fill up the gas tank. I go get cash out of the ATM, because all those things are going to be harder to get later this week when likely hurricane watches go up for some portion of the Florida Peninsula. Don't know exactly who's going to go under that hurricane watch and warning later, but a lot of you are at risk of that happening. So preliminary preparations are warranted before the real rush to get supplies happens. Right now, things are improving in Puerto Rico and especially in the Virgin Islands as this small hurricane pulls away. Max winds at 80 miles per hour as of the intermediate public advisory at 8 p.m. Eastern time. That was based on some updated reconnaissance data. No change from 5 p.m. on the intensity, but that will eventually change. This is poised to strengthen. The structure of it has gotten more impressive after it has left the Virgin Islands, a very circular eye feature. And here's what the hurricane hunters have been finding. This is the NOAA plane that took off from Barbados, and they found winds up near 80 miles per hour in one of the passes. And then the Air Force plane went through there. They took off from Curacao, came in from the southwest. They've done one pass, but they're about to do a second one. And I know that earlier they found winds near 80 miles per hour. So we'll see if anything new comes from the plane tonight. We do know there will be a new track and intensity forecast at 11 p.m. tonight, and then the next advisory will be at 5 a.m. No 2 a.m. intermediate update because there's no more land-based tropical storm hurricane watches and warnings up. They're all canceled for Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands. But with the timing here being that landfall, if it happens, in Florida could be in the Sunday night into Monday time frame, and winds of tropical storm force could start arriving as early as Sunday morning in central and southern Florida. That means, back up 2 days from that when hurricane watches might be issued. So they could come out with watches on Friday morning. So here we are Wednesday night. Thursday is going to be refining things to see where those watches and warnings might go up. Of course, for the Bahamas, things could start on Saturday morning. So tomorrow morning, watches could go up for them. Because of the slowdown in the forward speed of Dorian, those track points get closer and closer together as it approaches Florida later this week. That slowdown means not only are we dealing with wind and storm surge being risked, but inland flooding could be a substantial part of the story here. And what we saw in Florence last year, the slowdown led to an inland flood disaster. So even if Dorian does not come ashore as a major hurricane, it could still be a major flood disaster from inland flooding. But we still have to worry about the possibility of life-threatening storm surge and major hurricane force winds, guys.
Dr. Knapp, thank you. We know you have questions about Hurricane Dorian. We have answers for you. And we're going to do this over the next couple of days, too. So if you're on Facebook or Twitter and you still want to send us a question, may not get to it tonight, but we can get to it tomorrow. Hurricane questions is the hashtag to use. All right, Dr. Knapp, you ready to do this?
Absolutely. We've had some great questions so far.
Yeah, a lot of people wondering. This is one from Carlos. He says, in Jacksonville, Florida, with the track and speed the storm is moving, can we estimate how large the storm may be when making landfall?
Well, if they're talking about horizontal size, meaning how large, we really don't know. The intensity forecast does not tell you how horizontally large the hurricane will be. And major hurricanes often go through ups and downs in intensity. And Alex, you pointed this out earlier tonight, that if it goes through like an eyewall replacement cycle, it could be, I'm just saying, for example, what if it's 100 miles an hour instead of 115, but instead of being a small 115, it's a large 100 because you lose the inner eye wall and the outer eye wall takes over.
That's what we saw with Florence last year, correct? We were watching it be a smaller, more potent storm. Weakened, but it broadened.
Yeah, but even if that happens, it could re-strengthen. The outer eye wall could contract, and it could get back to 115 or greater. So lots of ups and downs in intensity and size can be expected with majors.
All right, good question, Carlos. How about this one from Matt Hatter? I know there's a lot of uncertainties with the path. What are the probabilities of the hurricane continuing to track south towards Miami-Dade as opposed to Central and North Florida?
Well, some of the European model solutions have that very possibility highlighted, but it's almost the same chance as it going through the northern part of the state. So this is possible, this is possible, this is possible. Even missing Florida altogether is possible. So you're all at risk for getting the center of Dorian and the worst it has to offer.
Yeah, got to watch this one, expecting the changes here in the next, 48 hours. Cinnamon wants to know, is a deadly storm surge likely with this storm, and how do I prepare?
Well, the answer to the first question is yes. How do you prepare? Here are some ideas. You know, in addition to finding out if you live in an evacuation
That's
zone.
probably the most critical for the storm surge.
And then planning where you go and how you get there if told to evacuate later this week. But as you think about, well, what if I have to evacuate? What do I do at my home? What do I take with me? Here are some things to do. Pack some essentials and maybe pack now so you don't have to worry about this at the last minute. You could always unpack it later. Leave as soon as you're told. Determine your safe evacuation route. You can determine that now and plan to take pets with you if you have them. So make sure your shelter you're going to or your friend's house that you can take pets. And before you go, be thinking about shutting off your home's utilities and taking keys with you and unplugging things before you leave. Because when the power goes out, when it comes back on, that can be a shock to the system for some of your electronics.
If you have all these things written down on a checklist, you can just check them off one at a time so you don't forget anything, because ultimately we're going to be nervous, we're going to be anxious, and we're going to forget something.
What a great question about planning for evacuation.
Well, for all of us here at Weather Underground, we thank you so much for watching. Hope you have a great night. Remember, Together We Know More. Our coverage continues through midnight Eastern with Mark Elliott and Carl Parker.
The best lunch option is more options. From all-time classics to brand new favorites, there are over 100 ways to enjoy lunch at Olive Garden, starting at $7.99. The choice is yours, only at Olive Garden.
Gary, I am proud of you, my man. Making simple, smart cashback choices. With Quicksilver from Capital One, you're earning unlimited 1.5% cash back on every purchase everywhere. Like on that new laptop, Quicksilver keeps things simple, Gary. And smart, like you. And I like that.
I guess I am pretty smart.
Don't let that go to your head, Gary. What's in your wallet?
Keeping the night interesting is all about setting the right tone. Lower carbs, lower calories, higher expectations. The light beer you've been waiting for has arrived. Corona Premier.
Stouffer's lasagna with meat and sauce has 2 times the beef of the leading meat sauce lasagna. That's double the tender ground beef baked into every cheesy, mouth-watering bite. When it comes to irresistible taste, more is always more. Stouffer's.
COPD makes it hard to breathe. So to breathe better, I started with Onoro.
COPD tries to say, go this way. I say, I'll go my own way with Onoro.
Once daily Onoro contains 2 medicines called bronchodilators that work together to significantly improve lung function all day and all night. Onoro is not for asthma. It contains a type of medicine that increases risk of death in people with asthma. The risk is unknown in COPD. Onoro won't replace rescue inhalers for sudden symptoms and should not be used more than once a day. Tell your doctor if you have a heart condition, high blood pressure, glaucoma, prostate, bladder, or urinary problems. These may worsen with Onoro. Call your doctor if you have worsened breathing, chest pain, mouth or tongue swelling, problems urinating, vision changes, or eye pain while taking Anoro.
Ask your doctor about Once Daily Anoro to start treating your COPD.
Go your own way. Save at Anoro.com.
Delicious high-fiber Raisin Bran.
Sure you don't want me to come with you?
I'm very sure.
Because I can. Make good choices.
You make good choices.
I am. Fiber's good for digestive health.
Good choices never tasted so good. Raisin Bran.
Hurricane Dorian coming through the Virgin Islands today brought maximum sustained winds of 75 miles an hour. That was right about the time that the Hurricane Center changed the designation of Dorian to hurricane status. And hey, here's the thing. Now that this is going over some very warm waters and we're exiting the islands of the Caribbean, we may have a major hurricane on our hands before the U.S. Continental landfall. Our extended live coverage of Hurricane Dorian continues right now on the Weather Channel. I'm meteorologist Mark Elliott. Alongside me will be storm specialist Carl Parker tonight. Want to take a look now at what we know about Hurricane Dorian. An 80-year-old Puerto Rican man who fell from his roof is the storm's first death. The National Hurricane Center forecast Dorian to become a major hurricane before that potential landfall in the United States. Meanwhile, Florida's governor has declared a state of emergency this evening. He's urging residents to prepare for Dorian as it strengthens and moves closer to the U.S. mainland. There is a lot to follow here. I know there's a good bit of information that we've been bringing to you over the past day. If you were watching last night with Carl and I, there have been some changes since we were talking last, not the least of which is that we have a hurricane already on our hands. Yeah. But the model guidance has been shifting around a bit, and I think it's important to go through what we know now compared to what we know yesterday.
Yeah, this is really a radical change as compared to what we were talking about yesterday, because we were looking at the possibility of the storm interacting with land in Puerto Rico or maybe even Hispaniola. It took a very different track in the last 24 hours, so there was little interaction with land, and for that reason it's much more well-formed tonight and on its way to becoming a major hurricane, most likely over the next couple of days here. Right now, a Category 1 storm with 80-mile-per-hour wind, moving towards the northwest at 13 miles per hour. We were talking about the uncertainty in the forecast yesterday because we didn't know what was going to happen with the system as it went over land. But again, we just didn't see very much of that at all today. And it's very well formed right now and is forecast to become a Category 2 storm by the time we get into Friday, and then a Category 3 hurricane going into the weekend as it is moving up and towards Florida. And at this point, it doesn't look like there's going to be a lot that stands in the way of increasing intensity in this storm. Now, there are always internal changes that can occur, structural changes within the eye wall that can occur, and those are very, very difficult to forecast. You really have to nowcast those. But in terms of the environment, it really does not appear that that is going to stand in the way. So the earliest that we would likely see tropical storm force winds coming into the east coast of Florida would be early on Sunday. So we'll probably see some watches coming up during the day on Friday, and that's when we really need to rush to get everything to completion at that point. We've got a little bit of time to figure this out and try to narrow the track a little bit. Still a lot of possibilities in terms of the track, and we're just not precisely sure of where it's going to go. Now, getting some bad data on the radar there. I'm going to stop that, and you can see how incredibly well-formed this storm is relative to what we were looking at yesterday. It was not well-formed at all, but it had some time. It fended off the dry air. It stayed out over the open water, and the upper level environment has been very favorable over the last 24 hours. So you see this well-defined eye wall showing up right in there, and a lot of structure to the hurricane in general. This is a really good-looking storm on radar. And if it continues to hold that structure without anything standing in its way, there's no reason to believe that it wouldn't be a major hurricane at some point as it's traveling into the near the Bahamas there through the western part of the Atlantic Ocean. You notice this upper level low that's sitting right in there. I think that's a part of why the storm moved more to the north-northwest as opposed to the west-northwest. And, you know, as long as that's the case also, it's a little bit farther away from that upper low. That upper low could actually shear it at some point point if it catches up to it. But at least for now, it's in a position where it's away from the upper low. So it's still got a very favorable environment. You notice the high clouds really spreading out in all directions. And in that environment, you tend to see a lot of strengthening. So here's a look at the forecast track here from the Hurricane Center, along with the European ensemble members. And what we have seen in the last day is a shift more to the south, indicating a stronger ridge to the north, and that would press it more to the south. So we may continue to see a slight shift more to the south there in terms of the forecast. Still squarely implicates Florida, but where in Florida is difficult to say. You know, the best guess right now is right down the center line. The reason why the cone spreads out like that is because the average forecast error increases over time. It gets very, very large by the time you get to day 5. But the best guess right now is right down the center line, and that would be along the east coast of Florida and the central part of Florida. But again, that could change. And another part of this story is that the storm could come out into the Gulf of Mexico and strengthen once again out over open water and then move into, say, the northern Gulf Coast. And beyond that, it's entirely possible that it slows down dramatically along the northern Gulf Coast, in which case we could be talking about a flood disaster there in some parts of the northern Gulf Coast, with the storm sitting there for 2 or maybe even close to 3 days. So a lot of different people could be affected by the storm, Mark. A lot of things to sort of narrow in on over the next couple of days here, but it looks like this storm poses a very, very serious threat.
Yeah, and there's a lot to unpack with what Carl just was talking about, so we're going to go back to all of that and really go through impact by impact, stage by stage, so you know what to expect as this storm approaches the U.S. coastline. Want to go back to meteorologist Paul Goodloe. He's been feeling Hurricane Dorian's impacts, at least to some degree, today in northeastern Puerto Rico, joining us live about an hour south of San Juan. Paul, what a sigh of relief for Puerto Rico. That change to that path made all the difference across the island.
You know, let's talk about this change of path, because it's been happening all week long, Mark. You know, on Monday, we're forecasting the path, the National Hurricane Center, the path of Dorian to be on the west side of the island between Puerto Rico and the DR and go through the Motor Passage. And then last night at this time, the forecast changed around 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and it was forecast to come right across Ponce, where we were last night, through this morning. And then we now moved here to Fajardo, which is about maybe 40 miles or so due east of San Juan on the northeast corner now. And as of this afternoon, late this morning, I should say, the forecast was to come right over Fajardo. But the actual reality was the storm went east of us here, which is great news for Puerto Rico, bad news for the U.S. Virgin Islands. Direct hit this morning as a tropical storm on the island of St. Croix. And then over St. Thomas, it strengthened and organized to become a hurricane. And we're still seeing some of the outer rain bands kind of still strafe the U.S. Virgin Islands right now, even the British Virgin Islands. The good news is all the watches and warnings have been dropped and discontinued, so our weather should be wholesale improving. We're not quite done with the rain. Right now, we haven't seen much rain in the last 45 minutes, but from time to time this afternoon, we saw the rain. And looking at this long radar loop we have from earlier this morning, you can see that the center of Dorian wasn't very well organized, but then became well organized throughout the morning, into the afternoon, and through this evening. You can clearly see, as Carl was pointing out, a well-defined circulation and that eye, and almost a full symmetrical eye wall, which means that's the stronger part. We have a time lapse. We got here around noon. The rain started shortly after noon, and it was raining almost nonstop through maybe about 6 o'clock or so, then hit and miss. And then now, every now and then, we might see a few more passing showers. But the heavier rain, the flood threat rain, well, that has not kind of materialized here in Puerto Rico. That's mainly because Dorian pushed east of us out here. I think the closest pass might have been maybe about 25 miles or so. But you know, while this is definitely a plus and a gain for Puerto Rico, the downside could be the southeastern U.S., Mark, because we know that the center didn't come across these mountains for over 4,000 feet, so it didn't disrupt the circulation. It stayed over water and quickly moved over the Virgin Islands here. So that's why Dorian is so intact right now, which means, yeah, as we see in the forecast, it could be very dicey and dangerous across the Bahamas, northern Bahamas, as well as the east coast of the U.S., especially Florida, as we head towards this Labor Day weekend.
It really is a classic example, Paul, that you can't just pay attention to the forecast when it's about to approach you, that things coming from other areas affect what happens down the line. I mean, we were, in some ways hoping that the Dominican Republic mountains could tear apart the system as it has done to other tropical systems in the past and never made it out of those islands. This didn't happen, right? This is a very well organized hurricane at this point, which means it could be really bad news for the U.S. coastline.
Exactly, because at its state yesterday, it was a tropical storm. So, these things organized, they get taller and taller and taller. And the mountains on the Hispaniola, Dominican Republic, we're talking 9,000, 10,000 feet. We're talking more than twice the mountains here in Puerto Rico. And they've got some mountains here. So you got a mountain that tall, kind of a short tropical storm coming through can easily disrupt the circulation. But none of that happened. Not even the shorter mountains here in Puerto Rico. It went through, even the Virgin Islands have some mountains, but it's not nearly as contiguous or as large as the chains here across Puerto Rico or even west in the Hispaniola. So while it's a boost for the DR and Haiti and here in Puerto Rico, that could mean down the road a much more organized storm. And once they do grow, then sometimes they kind of create their own little steering pattern as well. So that's why the models have been all over the place as the thing strengthens. So it's going to be almost must-see TV the next, say, 48 to 72 hours to see what the models do with now a strengthening hurricane as we head on to the end of the week.
Yeah, and of course, that next update from the National Hurricane Center happens just before 11. Paul, thanks so much for joining us. And we're going to stay in Puerto Rico now. Barney Acaron joins us on the phone right now. He's in Rio Grande, Puerto Rico, just east of San Juan. And thanks so much for joining us tonight. What are your thoughts with the near miss, if you will, the near hit, really, but the close call that Puerto Rico just went through?
Well, thankfully, it was a really uneventful day. Everybody that I saw was preparing diligently. Everybody was cooperating. It went a lot better than we expected, and honestly, I just feel like nobody really wanted this on the island. A lot of people are still feeling the trauma from Maria, and it's just kind of like an unfamiliar feeling that nobody really wanted to experience.
Talk about how many of those scars from Maria are still around. You mentioned the psychological scars, but as you're going around the area, we've heard reports that there are still thousands of homes with blue tarps as basically their main roof now. What's it like around you?
I live in the border right between Rio Grande and Loíza. Loíza is one of the most poor municipalities, and unfortunately, on my way to school, I go to law school in the capital city, and every single day I drive through Loíza. Every single day I see the blue tarps still. So I mean, my heart goes out to those people. I can't explain it.
It's such a long time, right? 23 months. Have you talked to those people? I know you said you're in school, busy with your studies, but to be out of power for a year to a year and a half and then to still not have a roof, what does that do to the mental state of the residents?
I mean, it shouldn't surprise anybody to say that it's a really negative effect that it has on them. But more than that, it just creates this distrust of our government, of whoever is in charge, because they just, I can only imagine that they feel really, really alone, maybe even abandoned. I don't know, but it's definitely not anything good.
What messages were coming out before this storm, both from your school and from your town where you live? Did it feel like people were more prepared this time?
Yeah, everything that I've been seeing in the news so far, any communication that I had from my school, everybody was encouraging everybody to prepare, to stock up on water. We bought water 2 days ago at Costco, and everybody was making an orderly line. Nobody was screaming. There wasn't this rush. It was just I just kind of noticed a focus on the island where people just were determined to be ready for this and determined to make the best out of this possibly bad situation.
Absolutely. I suppose it's a good thing to have to have over-prepared. Barney, thanks so much for joining us tonight. And, you know, we're hoping that that was it for the season for Puerto Rico. We know that's not it for the rest of the season for the U.S. Dorian is still coming your way. Want to talk a little bit about how we got here, but also the pluses and minuses for more development from Dorian. And some of the things that we look for, the trigger for tropical activity, moisture, upper level winds, and water all plays a role. The trigger has, of course, already happened. We had this tropical wave that came off Africa. It was a meager at best, and it stayed that way for quite a long time. We follow that disorganized swirl until it was basically approaching the islands, when you then had a designation as Tropical Depression 5, and almost instantly from there, a few hours later really, named Tropical Storm Dorian. Stayed as a tropical storm as it came across portions of the Lesser Antilles and was then last night approaching Puerto Rico, became a hurricane this afternoon at 2 o'clock, and we know where we're at now, that we continue to have that potential for more strengthening. The moisture envelope has really expanded. You notice all the dry air it came through. Big difference as you look towards Florida, all those orange colors not necessarily there in the same way, so at least the upper level moisture is a much more abundant. And then the upper level winds. We had that upper level low that was nearby. Now that's acting to kind of help the lungs of Dorian, help the strengthening at this point. What we look at here is called shear. If there were shear right over the storm, it could kind of rip apart the vertical stacking. But the forecast actually brings the system north of the Bahamas towards Florida into an area with much lower amounts of shear. And so there isn't much in that column that could slow down the development. And the last thing to look at is the water temperatures, and my goodness, there is plenty of that. You look at the path here, the forecast track, going over waters that are in the 80s and 90s. So that's kind of the broad brush, the for and against the storm development. But I know you have more questions about the storm, so send them our way using the hashtag Hurricane Questions, and we'll answer them live right here.
This is the story of John Smith. Not this John Smith, or this John Smith, or any of the other hundreds of John Smiths that are Humana Medicare Advantage members. No, it's this John Smith, who met with Humana to create a personalized care plan. At Humana, we have more ways to care for your health, and we find one that works just for you, no matter what your name is.
Showing off their silver leaves as we walk by. Soft kisses on a summer's day, laughing all our cares away.
Would you like to try a burger made with plants?
Plants.
It's delicious, and I am a kid, so if I like it...
Morningstar Farms, America's favorites, made from plants.
The first survivor of Alzheimer's disease is out there, and the Alzheimer's Association is going to make it happen. But we won't get there without you. Join the fight with the Alzheimer's Association.
So Josh, you going for our Drive Safe and Safe discount?
Yep, using the app, driving safe. You wanna go, bro? Do not mess with my discount.
Get a discount up to 30% with Drive Safe and Save.
Budget meeting.
Sweet.
You compare last quarter to this quarter.
It's no wonder everything seems a little better with the creamy taste of Philly. Made with fresh milk and real cream. It must be the Philly.
Take the floor somewhere unexpected. Everything you need is at your fingertips and at the Home Depot. On-trend styles with innovations to make it pet-proof. Make it life-proof. Make it waterproof. Make it beautiful. And the Home Depot has everything you need.
No matter what you're building, get professional results with Quikrete fast-setting concrete in the red bag. It sets hard in minutes. Find out more at Quikrete.com. Quikrete, for over 70 years, it's what America's made of.
This is Bai. On one hand, it's healthy. But on the other hand, it's delicious. Healthy, delicious. Healthy, delicious. Healthy-licious. I like that. Bai. Great flavor and good for you. A taste of both worlds. Hey, that was mine.
Yes, it's the first word of any new discovery. But when allergies attack, the excitement fades. Allegra helps you say yes with the fastest non-drowsy allergy relief and turn any half-hearted yes into an all-in yes. Allegra, live your life, not your allergies.
Call 1-800-647-9812. 1-800-647-9812. 1-800-647-9812.
This is epic! You're watching America's most trusted TV news network.
We've got a severe weather threat.
We are live on the ground. Right now, it's coming down.
The Weather Channel.
Currently in our area, 75 degrees under fair skies. Tonight, mainly clear, low 67. Winds south-southwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Thursday, sunshine and clouds mixed. A stray shower or thunderstorm is possible. High 91. Thursday night, thunderstorms, gusty winds and small hail are possible. Low 66. Here's our 7-day outlook.
Check this out. Some intense winds that whipped across the U.S. Virgin Islands. This was the scene as Dorian moved across St. John this afternoon. Trees bending in the winds there, gusting over 70 miles per hour, and that's more than enough to get those palm fronds blowing, as that is what they are designed to do. In fact, a lot of the palms, the bigger palms, kind of let go at some point, and you have only the little tiny sticks of leaves that are left, and that's how those palm trees can survive through the worst of the winds that happen in the tropics. Tonight, the island remains under a flash flood and coastal flood watch. There are still some kind of feeder bands, if you heard that term in the past, but basically those outer bands of moisture coming up from the south. Lots to follow tonight, including that we still have, the impacts moving through the islands right now in some form, right? It's not like it was earlier today, but you're not completely done in the Virgin Islands. Forecast to strengthen into a major hurricane this weekend, and the threat for hurricane conditions and storm surge for Florida has really increased. That said, we can't eliminate other states, say the northern Gulf Coast over time, or even Georgia into the Carolina coastlines. You are not completely out of play either. Here's that band that I'm talking about. Look at this feed of moisture that's coming up, going right over portions of the Virgin Islands still. So yes, Puerto Rico is mostly dry, but there is still some rain that's wrapping into the system. It's an 80-mile-per-hour hurricane at this point, moving northwest at 13. Remember, the next full advisory comes out at 11. That's when we'll get an update on the forecast track, that cone that we show you. We'll get new guidance from the National Hurricane Center at that point. But as of the previous advisory, this is still the forecast for a major hurricane by this weekend approaching the the southeast coastline, whether that's South Florida, North Florida, Georgia coast. All equal chances by this line on Sunday and by this line on Monday. Those are, yes, there's a center point on this, but it often is not the center point that has the storm by day 4 and 5. So it's important to continue to tune in. This cone will continue to change. Want to bring in storm specialist Carl Parker talking more about that, as we saw a big shift to the right or to the north, depending on how you want to look at the movement of the storm. Yeah. And that trend seems like it's continuing tonight.
Yeah, it does. I mean, it's definitely moving more towards the north-northwest.
Eventually, though, a shove westward.
Yeah, that's the idea, is that it's eventually going to start to wrap around and then then be driven by a big ridge that is off to the north and then almost due west at that point and towards Florida. And the modeling has generally been showing that that ridge is going to be more and more dominant. So we'll see how it unfolds over the next couple of days. But what probably happened here in the last 24 hours is that this upper low factored in a little bit more heavily than had been thought a little earlier on, because there was really a radical departure here as compared to what the models were showing early on, which is a track sort of like that along southwestern parts of Puerto Rico. What ended up happening is it moved off to the east of Puerto Rico, really sparing Puerto Rico of the worst of the impacts and brought a lot of the worst of it into the Virgin Islands. Now, you look at the radar picture over the last 6 hours, and you can see how well formed the storm is on radar. This thing is really getting very organized very quickly. We talked about the fact yesterday that when you've got a smaller system, they can get more organized more quickly. They can ramp up quickly, and they can also ramp down quickly depending on what's going on with the environment. But what we see here, and we just lost an image, so I'm going to stop it right in there. What we see is a very well-developed inner eye wall, pretty much symmetrical at this point, and then the secondary eye wall right in here. So this thing is really well formed at this point, and there's really nothing to stop it from continuing to intensify. It looks like the shear is going to be lighter, generally speaking, and it also looks like we're going to see very, very warm water temperatures, exceptionally warm, especially towards the track as it gets closer to Florida. But look at where it is relative to the ensemble members right now. It's to the north right there, so we've still got a track that is a little farther to the north relative to where a lot of the guidance has been. And every time that happens, that shifts everything a little farther to the north. So the question is, when does that big flat ridge start to take over and drive it west? And that's the other thing that's been factoring into this. If the ridge is even stronger, it ends up being farther south, but there might be some compensation for that depending on where the position is.
Yeah, I think we're going to see a response in the cone, in that track, because we are a little bit further north than the guidance has suggested thus far. And so that trend of kind of bumping the track north will continue. You could argue maybe it doesn't matter as much in the, the shorter term, because we're now exiting the islands, but it does have impacts further down the line. So again, the islands are seeing some squally weather, some gusty winds, but the worst of the weather there is done. The question remains, if we continue to bump this track just a little bit further north over time, do we still have, portions of the Bahamas at play? And then with that high pressure zone that's still going to build in, does it eventually shove the storm west, further north, or does it build so strong that the track is still into South Florida? Those things are still potentials here. Over time, the forecast of this wind gets quite dramatic as a major hurricane could be approaching our shores.
At Physicians Mutual, we know that planning for retirement can feel scary.
I see you're about to turn 65.
You know what that means. Medicare.
It doesn't cover dental.
What high bills you'll have.
Actually, we're getting a Physicians Mutual.
Oh, great. She'll be covered. Retire with confidence. We'll listen and find you the coverage you need.
Physicians Mutual, Physicians Mutual.
Managing type 2 diabetes? Audrey's on it. Eating right?
On it.
Staying active?
On it.
Audrey thinks she's doing all she can to manage her type 2 diabetes and heart disease. But is her treatment doing enough to lower her heart risk? Maybe not. Jardiance is the #1 prescribed pill in its class. Jardiance can reduce the risk of cardiovascular death for adults who also have known heart disease. That means Jardiance can help save your life from a heart attack or stroke. Plus, Jardiance lowers A1C, and it can help you lose some weight.
Jardiance can cause serious side effects, including dehydration, genital yeast or urinary tract infections, and sudden kidney problems. Ketoacidosis is a serious side effect that may be fatal. A rare but life-threatening bacterial infection in the skin of the perineum could occur. Stop taking Jardiance and call your doctor right away if you have symptoms of this bacterial infection, ketoacidosis, or an allergic reaction. Do not take Jardiance if you are on dialysis or have severe kidney problems. Taking Jardiance with a sulfonylurea or insulin may cause low blood sugar.
Lower A1C and lower risk of a fatal heart attack?
On it. With Jardiance.
Ask your doctor about Jardiance, the type 2 diabetes pill that's on it. Learn more at Jardiance.com.
You wouldn't accept an incomplete job from anyone else. Why accept it from your allergy pills? Flonase relieves your worst symptoms, including nasal congestion, which most pills don't. Flonase helps block 6 key inflammatory substances. Most pills only block 1. Flonase.
To be their best, kids need good nutrition and practice. Lots of practice. Get them started right with Carnation Breakfast Essentials. It has protein plus vitamins and minerals to help kids be their best. Carnation Breakfast Essentials.
This Labor Day, save up to 50% on over 300 floors at Lumber Liquidators Labor Day flooring sale. Get family-friendly waterproof flooring up to 50% off and AquaSeal water-resistant laminate flooring up to 25% off. Or save up to 40% on our top-of-the-line Bellawood hardwood. And let us arrange the installation for you. Plus, get 24-month special financing for your entire project. Don't miss these incredible flooring deals. The Labor Day sale is going on now at Lumber Liquidators Flooring Company.
The proud son of an immigrant father, John Hernandez found his own path through a field of smoke. John found his fighting spirit in one of the most dangerous jobs in the world, a job few are willing to do. Modelo, brewed for those with a fighting spirit.
If this gives you a sign of what's still to come, it should kind of grab your attention, right? This was when we were just barely getting to hurricane status across St. Thomas in the U.S. Virgin Islands. The trees bending with the wind, kind of those sheets of rain going by, whipping across the view. This is that first-hand look at just how intense the winds were earlier today. And the winds are already stronger than they were at this point, and the forecast continues to develop those winds even more dramatically as the storm is forecast to come towards the U.S. So thank you for staying with us for our special coverage, tracking Hurricane Dorian. We're with you until midnight Eastern to bring you the latest advisories and the forecast tracks as they come in. It is expertise you can't find anywhere else. I'm meteorologist Mark Elliott, joined tonight by storm specialist Carl Parker. And Carl, there's a lot to unpack with the risks to this storm. In the short term, we're looking at the potential for really rapid intensification. In the longer term, a slowing storm. Maybe a flood event for somebody. You know, there are so many risks as any tropical system approaches, but this one looks quite formidable when all is said and done.
It does, and you know, tropical meteorology can be really humbling, and one thing that we were looking at yesterday is whether or not the storm would interact with land in Puerto Rico or even Hispaniola, and would that have an impact on the structure of the storm, and would that affect what happened with the storm downstream? And it really did not have very much interaction with land at all. It passed to the east of Puerto Rico as opposed to through the southwest side of the island, and so that track forecast was really off here in the last 24 hours, and the result is that you've got a strengthening storm that is getting more organized by the hour and poses a very serious threat to Florida and also other parts of the southeast because of what it may do after it moves through Florida. It may come out into the Gulf. It's also possible that it lifts up to the north. It's entirely possible that it slows down dramatically, in which case we'll be talking about a very serious flood threat developing across parts of perhaps the northern Gulf Coast. So here's the forecast track and intensities from the Hurricane Center, looking for the storm to become a Category 2 by Friday, a Category 3 by the weekend as it moves off to the west and generally towards Florida. Now, you notice the cone gets larger as you go out through time. That's the average forecast error increasing. The best guess right now is right down the center line of that cone, and so that would be along the east coast of Florida and the central part of Florida. But that could change, and one thing that we've seen in the model guidance here in the last 24 hours is that the ridge that is going to flatten this track out, that is to the north, that ridge has been depicted as being a little bit stronger in the more recent model guidance, and so if that trend continues, that may continue to flatten that track, even though it's lifted a little farther to the north here in the last 24 hours. This is a look at the tropical storm force wind probabilities. Now, it's pretty early yet, but this is just meant to give you a rough idea of what we could be looking at, and those winds probably coming in early on Sunday. So by the time we get to Friday, that would be when most likely watches go up for some portion of Florida, and we'll probably have a much better idea of where exactly the storm is going to be going. At that point, we'll be able to narrow that track considerably when we're just a couple of days out, but it's still very much an open question. And then you've got this flood threat, which we think that is going to be very serious through Florida, but then will also most likely extend up into the northern Gulf Coast as the storm really slows down towards the end of that journey.
So, you know, I want to continue to look downstream. Let's face it, a lot of people that are watching us are watching from either the southeast or even the Gulf Coast states. Let's talk about the risks, although they may not be great, to some areas that really haven't been focused in on much. Do you want to talk about South Carolina still being at play, or on the other hand, is Texas still at play from this storm?
Yeah, you know, I think that there's an array of possibilities at this point, and one thing that we can look at is what's going on with the upper level pattern. And so let's take a look at the 500 millibar heights here. And so what we see is a big ridge of high pressure. This is the big Bermuda high that is sitting out over the western part of the Atlantic Ocean right there. Here is the storm sitting right in there. So as we take this forward, what this model is indicating, this is the European model, the model is showing us that this ridge is very strong. It's almost like a blocker in football, and so it's directing the storm more off to the west as a result. Now, some of the guidance showed that the ridge would back away a little bit and allow the storm to turn a little bit more towards the north. I think that's still a possibility at this point, but the trend has been to show a stronger ridge driving the storm more to the west. Then by the time we get into Sunday, the storm is beginning to come towards Florida. You've still got this big flat ridge out there continuing to drive it westward, and then we go into, this is into Wednesday and Thursday of next week. This is how long this thing is going to be around, and then you've still got this ridging that extends from the southeast coast back out and into parts of the plains, and there too, that's preventing the storm from moving very much at all. So it may be that it starts to edge into the northern Gulf Coast and then just very slowly moves along the northern Gulf Coast Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And in that case, Mark, we'd be talking about potentially a flood disaster in some areas because of that slow forward speed. I mean, that was what made Harvey the disaster that it was, the fact that the storm wasn't moving. It wasn't that the storm was so strong, it was just that it wasn't moving.
Not every storm is Harvey. We don't want to say that this is going to be another one.
Yeah.
But when you see a strong storm slowing down, we know all the impacts get worse. So we're going to continue to break down those impacts. And for those of you that are still questioning, we're here to help hurricane part an important part of your home. We show you how to do that next.
Would you like to try a burger made with plants?
Plants.
It's delicious.